Betamax versus VHS, when superior technology lost the format war. In 1975, Sony unleashed what they believed would revolutionize home entertainment forever. The Betamax, short for Beta Magnetic Tape Recording System, wasn't just another gadget. It was the first commercially viable home video cassette recorder that actually worked reliably. Sony had spent years perfecting the technology, creating a system that delivered broadcast-quality recordings with stunning clarity for its time. The picture quality was noticeably superior to anything consumers had seen in their living rooms, with better color reproduction, sharper images, and less video noise than would plague its competitors. Sony's engineers had achieved something remarkable. They had miniaturized professional-grade video recording technology and made it affordable for regular households. When the first Betamax unit, the SL6300, hit Japanese shelves in May 1975 with a price tag of 229,800 yen, roughly $2,300 in today's money, it seemed destined to dominate the emerging home video market. The machine could record up to 1 hour of television programming, which Sony's market research indicated was sufficient for most TV shows and user needs. Early adopters were mesmerized by the ability to time-shift their viewing, recording shows while they were out and watching them later, a concept so revolutionary that it would eventually lead to a Supreme Court case. Sony had invented the future, or so they thought. But just 2 years later, in September 1977, a coalition of Japanese electronics manufacturers, led by JVC, would launch a competing format that would ultimately crush Sony's technological masterpiece. The Video Home System, or VHS, emerged from JVC's laboratories as what many engineers considered an inferior product. The image quality was noticeably worse than Betamax, with more grain, less accurate colors, and a generally softer picture that looked fuzzy compared to Beta's crisp recordings. However, JVC had made a crucial strategic decision that Sony's engineers had dismissed as unimportant. VHS tapes could record for 2 hours right out of the gate, double the capacity of early Betamax cassettes. This wasn't achieved through superior engineering, quite the opposite. JVC had simply accepted lower quality standards, using thinner tape running at slower speeds to cram more content onto each cassette. While Sony's engineers were perfecting broadcast quality recordings, JVC was solving a more practical problem, giving consumers enough recording time to capture an entire movie or sporting event without changing tapes. The first VHS machine, the HR3300, launched in Japan with capabilities that seemed mundane compared to Beta's technical prowess, but it addressed real consumer needs that Sony had overlooked in their pursuit of technical perfection. The fundamental philosophical difference between these formats revealed itself in their technical specifications and design priorities. Betamax used a superior helical scanning system that wrapped the tape around the recording drum for approximately 180 degrees, creating more contact between the tape and the recording heads. This resulted in a horizontal resolution of about 250 lines compared to VHS's initial 240 lines, though the difference was more pronounced in real-world viewing conditions. Sony's format also employed better error correction, more precise tape transport mechanisms, and higher quality components throughout the signal chain. The Beta cassettes themselves were more compact and robust, with better protection for the delicate magnetic tape inside. Sony had engineered a Rolls-Royce when the market wanted a reliable Toyota. Meanwhile, VHS prioritized recording time above all else, initially offering 120 minutes of recording time compared to Beta's 60 minutes. JVC achieved this by running the tape at 1.31 inches per second compared to Beta's faster 1.57 inches per second, and by using a simpler 90-degree wrap around the drum assembly. The trade-off was image quality, but JVC correctly gambled that consumers would accept lower quality in exchange for convenience and longer recording times. Sony's strategic missteps began almost immediately after Betamax's launch, revealing a corporate culture that prioritized technical excellence over market realities. When other manufacturers approached Sony about licensing the Betamax technology, Sony demanded strict adherence to their technical specifications and maintained tight control over the manufacturing process. They wanted to preserve the format's technical superiority and their premium brand positioning, but this approach severely limited Beta's market penetration. In contrast, JVC actively courted partners for VHS, offering more flexible licensing terms and allowing manufacturers greater freedom to adapt the technology for different market segments. By 1978, major electronics companies including Panasonic, Sharp, Hitachi, and Mitsubishi had joined the VHS consortium, while Sony found itself increasingly isolated with only a handful of beta licensees like Sanyo and Toshiba. The numbers tell the story. By 1981, there were more than 40 companies manufacturing VHS equipment compared to fewer than 12 producing Betamax machines. Sony's insistence on maintaining premium pricing for beta machines, typically 20–30% higher than comparable VHS units, further limited their market reach. While Sony viewed Betamax as a premium product deserving premium prices, consumers increasingly saw it as an expensive alternative that couldn't record full-length movies. The home video rental market emerged as the decisive battleground where Betamax would ultimately lose the format war, despite its technical advantages. When the first video rental stores opened in the late 1970s, store owners faced a crucial decision: which format should dominate their shelf space? Initially, many stores stocked both formats, but economics quickly forced them to choose sides. VHS's longer recording time meant that movies could fit on a single cassette, while many films required 2 beta tapes, increasing inventory costs and creating customer frustration. The iconic 1980 release of The Shining perfectly illustrated this problem. The film fit comfortably on one VHS tape, but required 2 beta cassettes, making it more expensive for rental stores to stock and more annoying for customers to watch. By 1982, rental stores were reporting that VHS titles were being rented at a rate of nearly 3-to-1 compared to beta titles, creating a vicious cycle where stores reduced their beta inventory, making the format even less attractive to consumers. The adult film industry, which accounted for a significant portion of early home video sales, also gravitated toward VHS due to the longer recording times and lower duplication costs. Sony's corporate image prevented them from actively courting this market segment, but the economic impact was substantial. Adult content drove VHS adoption in ways that Sony couldn't or wouldn't compete with. Hollywood studios initially remained neutral in the format war, but market forces eventually pushed them toward VHS as well. In 1977, Magnetic Video became the first company to release Hollywood films for home purchase, offering 50 titles including Casablanca and The Sound of Music on both formats. However, as VHS gained market share, studios began to see the economics shifting in favor of the longer-playing format. Disney's 1980 decision to release Sleeping Beauty exclusively on VHS for the home market sent shockwaves through the industry and demonstrated how format exclusivity could drive consumer adoption. The movie industry's embrace of VHS wasn't just about recording time, it was about installed base and market momentum. By 1983, VHS machines outsold Betamax units by more than 2-to-1 in the United States, and the gap was widening every quarter. Studios like Warner Brothers and Universal began dedicating more marketing resources to VHS releases, creating better packaging, extras, and promotional campaigns for VHS titles while treating beta releases as an afterthought. The rental market's preference for VHS created additional pressure, as studios earned significant revenue from rental store purchases. When Blockbuster Video began its rapid expansion in 1985, their decision to focus primarily on VHS essentially sealed Beta's fate in the home video market. International markets revealed different dynamics in the format war, but ultimately reinforced VHS's victory through sheer volume and network effects. In Europe, the format battle played out differently than in the United States, with some countries initially favoring Betamax due to different viewing habits and Sony's stronger brand presence. The United Kingdom saw relatively strong beta adoption early on, partly because the BBC's technical standards aligned more closely with beta's superior image quality. However, the economics of scale eventually favored VHS even in beta-friendly markets. By 1984, VHS was outselling beta globally by margins exceeding 4-to-1, creating manufacturing efficiencies that further reduced VHS costs while making beta increasingly expensive to produce. The Reagan administration's antitrust policies prevented Sony from taking more aggressive steps to protect their format, while Japanese trade policies encouraged the cooperative approach that benefited the VHS consortium. In developing markets, price sensitivity heavily favored VHS, as consumers prioritized affordability and availability over technical quality. The format war also coincided with the rise of electronic manufacturing in South Korea and Taiwan, where companies like Samsung and Gold Star could produce VHS machines at costs that undercut even the most efficient beta manufacturers. Sony's attempts to salvage Betamax through technical improvements and strategic partnerships ultimately proved too little, too late, demonstrating how market momentum can become insurmountable even for superior technology. In 1979, Sony extended beta recording time to 2 hours with the Beta 2 format, matching VHS capability but at the cost of some image quality, ironically adopting the same trade-offs they had initially criticized JVC for making. The 1981 introduction of Beta 3 pushed recording time to 3 hours, but by then VHS had established such a commanding market position that technical parity wasn't enough. Sony's partnership with Disney to create educational content for schools showed promise, but the education market wasn't large enough to sustain the format. The company's decision to license Betamax technology more aggressively in the mid-1980s succeeded in lowering prices and increasing availability, but VHS's network effects had become self-reinforcing. Video stores stocked more VHS titles because more customers owned VHS machines, and more consumers bought VHS machines because video stores carried more VHS titles. Sony's introduction of Super Beta in 1985, which genuinely offered broadcast-quality recording with 290 lines of horizontal resolution, represented a final attempt to win through technical superiority, but consumers had already moved on. The format had become a textbook example of how network effects and market timing could overcome technical advantages. By 1988, even Sony was forced to acknowledge reality and begin manufacturing VHS machines, effectively conceding defeat in the format war, while Betamax retreated to professional and industrial applications where technical quality mattered more than consumer convenience. The final consumer Betamax recorder rolled off Sony's production line in 2002, ending nearly 3 decades of production, while VHS continued dominating home video until DVD finally displaced it in the early 2000s. The Betamax vs. VHS battle established the template for future format wars, from Blu-ray versus HD DVD to various streaming protocols, proving that superior technology means nothing without superior market strategy. Sony's experience with Betamax taught them valuable lessons they would apply to later successes like the compact disc and PlayStation gaming console, where they prioritized market adoption and developer support alongside technical excellence. The format war cost Sony an estimated $25 billion in lost market opportunity and damaged their reputation for market timing, despite their technical achievements. Betamax's legacy lives on in professional broadcasting, where Beta's superior technical specifications kept it alive in television stations and production facilities long after consumers forgot it existed. The term Betamax entered business school curricula as a cautionary tale about how companies can lose by winning the wrong battle. Sony had created the best video recording technology, but failed to create the most successful video recording business. In the end, VHS didn't win because it was better. It won because it was better at being what consumers actually wanted: affordable, convenient, and compatible with the content and hardware ecosystem that emerged around home video entertainment.